Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Yesterday, the Nigerian Senate approved President Bola Tinubu's proclamation of a state of emergency in Rivers State, citing constitutional powers under the amended 1999 Constitution. The emergency rule, which suspends Governor Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy, and all state assembly members for 6 months, grants the president the authority to enforce the emergency measures subject to review within the period. Vice-Admiral Ibok Ekwe Ibas has been appointed as the sole administrator. Here's what you should know. To ensure oversight, the National Assembly has set up a joint committee to monitor the implementation of emergency measures and ensure transparency. Additionally, the Senate has established a mediation committee consisting of prominent Nigerians to help resolve the state's political crisis.
Commander-in-Chief, Federal Republic of Nigeria, on the state of affairs in Rivers State. And the Senate resolved as follows. 1. The Senate invokes the powers conferred on it by Section 305, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and approve the proclamation of state of emergency declared by Mr. President in Rivers State of Nigeria. The Senate further directs the state of emergency stated in the proclamation document and the mandate of Mr. President to review, and hereby mandates the President to review and even to terminate the state of emergency at any given time, but not later than 6 months.
Meanwhile, the declaration has sparked mixed reactions, with some supporting it as a step towards restoring order, while other coalition of opposition parties, including leaders like Atiku, Abubakar and Peter Obi, have called for its reversal.
This issue had to do with breach of security in whatever form. The question that should naturally be asked: who controls the police, the military, and the DSS, the governor or the president? Now, ladies and gentlemen, our demand and call to action. Number 1, immediate reversal. We call on President Bola Tinubu to immediately revoke this unconstitutional proclamation and reinstate the elected governor, deputy governor, and state assembly of Rivers State. 2, National Assembly reduction. We call on patriotic senators and representatives to vote against this illegal action when it comes before them for approval. The National Assembly must stand on the right side of history and not allow itself to be used to legitimize an unconstitutional power grab. Three, judicial intervention. We urge the judiciary to act swiftly in striking down this proclamation, as it sets a dangerous precedent that could be used to arbitrarily remove any governor in the future. I am very happy to read the ruling of a judge in Rivers State which directed a status quo. Number 4, Nigerians must defend democracy.
Well, don't forget that suspended Governor Fubara has also spoken to some of the allegations meted against him, giving clarity to the issue on ground. With the approval from both the Senate and the House of Representatives, the state of emergency in Rivers State is set to take immediate effect. Well, joining us to discuss this is indeed one way to look at the development and its implications. We do have public affairs analyst here in the studio, Dotun Ojon, who joins us this morning. Welcome, Dotun. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. It's good to be here. Yeah.
And also, we have the convener of the Integrated Summit Group, Dr. Chris Ekiyor, who joins us via video conferencing. Good morning and thanks for being here as well.
Good morning.
Okay. So, gentlemen, let's go straight into it. A lot of Nigerians, we're not expecting anything different to come from the National Assembly, even though some did hold on tight to a very thin hope. But let me start first with you, Dr. Chris Ekiyor, before we do come back to the studios. What do you make of former Vice President's statement talking about Atiku Abubakar, stating that this would set the precedents for future removal of governors from office? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so that I clearly stated yesterday when I was addressing a few people on social media, that what has happened few days ago, 2 days ago, or yesterday, sets the precedents for setting fiat in a democratic system. Whereas the president has the power to do what he has done. It is clear before all that the situation in Rivers State is not heightened to the level where that state of emergency would have been invoked. But it has been invoked in good faith. Whether timely or not is not known. So I also think that the other statesmen, like the former president, Vice President, and all the leaders in the country should have earlier on intervened before this hammer is drawn. Once the hammer is drawn, it's daring the president to say, you must take it back. That's how I see it. Unfortunately, we don't like it. It has happened. It's unfortunate because as far as I'm concerned, the security situation in Rivers State do not qualify for a state of emergency.
Now, let's come to Dotun in the studio. Was this state of emergency necessary? Could the president have taken alternative measures? I know the damage has been done, it's declared it, but in hindsight, looking at the facts of the things on ground in Rivers State, people say, there was no violence. You've seen other states where worse things have happened. Did the president act in good faith?
Okay, there are two things that usually happen when it involves a governor or a president that a lot of people in the public are not aware of. We could take it from the angle of the security report. When, before anybody takes any action, the president, the governor, I think heavily they rely on what the security report says. Unfortunately, the members of public may not really have was a direct access to what the security report and intelligence briefings are all about. Having said that, it's also very necessary because I will have suggested that the Nigerian president is powerless if I had said that there's nothing other than this that he can do. For example, a call could have turned things around. I understand the fact that in Nigeria today we have a 40 political process, and we all unfortunately expect a 40 process to bring out a good product. It doesn't happen like that. All of this from the very beginning has been a 40 process. Even from the time that the governor...
The primaries.
Yes, even from the primaries. You talk about the time that the governor was even made the candidate of his own political party. They were discordant tune. I was here, we talked about the House of Assembly in Lagos the other day. People choose you, put you ahead of other people. It's a 40 process in a democracy. Then we also talk about what the president could have done. And for me, one major thing that I need us to continue to pay attention to is that the dividend of democracy, or the process of procuring dividend of democracy for the people of Rivers, should be paramount. And I do not say that, or I do not mean to say that the president could not have made a call that could have resolved this. Dr. Ekiyor made mention of something. What happened when this crisis broke out is that immediately everybody took side. And even when the president came across, why a lot of people are coming out to condemn the president today, it's not because they like Fubara that much. It's about the fact that the president, from the very beginning, had appeared to have taken side with Nyesom Wike. And when things happen, even when the state of emergency was declared, the question has always been, there are at least 3 known major actors in this whole fight. You talk about the camp of the governor, you talk about the House of Assembly that are members that are directly involved, you talk about the governor, you talk about the Minister of FCT. So if we are declaring a state of emergency in Rivers, logically, you're thinking that also the FCT minister should be suspended. And that will create an opportunity for everybody to come to the table and have a fruitful conversation, because at that point, all of them will have something that they are losing. So, but when you don't do it this way...
The AGF, Mr. Latif Fagbemi, with due respect to him, said the minister has nothing to do with it, that he's not a member of the River State House of Assembly, he's not the governor, so why involve him? He's in Abuja.
Okay, so, and that's, I completely respect him, and I accept the fact that he's not a member of, but of course, your channel at some point was hooking up with the press briefing, and you hear the kind of conversations that actually happen in those briefings. So it will be an abuse to the Nigerian psyche if anybody comes out to say that the minister is not a part of it. See, the minister is a major part of it.
He didn't destroy the...
And nobody is talking about destruction. We are just talking about imminent danger. And as long as you have back and forth between two political figures, I told you the other time that I came here, that what we have in Rivers is a contest between political people and political power. Unfortunately, anytime there's a conflict between the people and politics of a land, the politics of the land will always win. I was in Rivers, I told you, and I interviewed a set of people, and all of them seemed to be with Fubara. Fubara seemed to own the people, but politics, Wike owns the politics of Rivers. So you cannot say the man who currently owns the politics of Rivers is not part of the entire thing that is causing crisis.
All right. Let me bring Dr. Chris Ekiyor back to join us here. Doctor, can you tell us what your thoughts are, especially concerning the fact that the FCT minister was not mentioned at all in this entire process? It seems rather that he's been singled out and taken away from the entire conflicts that we've seen that's driven River State to this point.
All right, thank you. So first, I want to align my thoughts with the speaker there who have said that there's no way you can exclude the FCT minister from culpability in the whole of this drama. He himself has said that he is part of it. He has shown publicly, and Mr. President has even tried to resolve the crisis between the FCT minister, the House of Assembly, and the governor. So it's no doomsday to say that he's involved. However, the issue that the president has done now, when you declare a state of emergency in a state, it affects the state. It does not affect the federal office holder. So if you suspend him, we'll be suspending him maybe in another error. So you make one error in suspending the House, and you then make another one in the Federal Council. To suspend the minister, you would have done some gross misconduct. But this was a political struggle at the state level. What the president should have done is to caution his minister long even before now. He has not done that. So Nigerians completely feel that the president has taken side. The way the riot act was read, it was a riot act. The way it was read, it was a riot act. And the National Assembly, people will blame them, but trust me, if they refuse to comply, they too will start having their own battle with the president, just the way the Amefuna-led House of Assembly would have having battle with the state. The way it's a faulty democracy, where in a way, the legislative arm is just a tug along with the executive arm. They really are not independent. Even though they pretend to be so independent, if they go against the position of the executive, there's always going to be this kind of conflict. So I see the National Assembly being cautious, not trying to oppose the president, so they don't have their own internal squabbles like you had under, I think that was Saraki and Buhari at one time. This kind of drama. So, and it puts them at a place where their Bel kingdom is not protected. So Nigerians are not happy. The reason is clear. The picture in Rivers State does not paint for a state of emergency. And if the president thought that in his wisdom what he needed to do was to do that, it does not call for suspension of the elected office holders for the period of time. He could have moved in security to improve, save lives and property, and then find the mediation politically to resolve this conflict between his appointee and the governor of the state. The issue here about power is that the governor is the governor. You cannot be governor and not be the governor. So he's trying to exercise his power as governor without recourse to how he became governor. And that's the conflict. That's the conflict. So the president, who is father of all, could have done it differently. But where we are now is crying over spilled milk. It has been pronounced, permission has been done, the Joint Assembly has approved it, whichever way they did. They also did not follow the constitutional principles of the majority of the entire House. They did a voice vote. So you can find out that to a large extent, for a common citizen, everybody feels that there's some kind of taking side already. Now, on the issue of security, I want to disagree a bit with what the speaker in the studio said, that there was a security briefing for the president, so nobody knows that. So if, for instance, as we are sitting now, the Joint Chief of Staffs briefed the president that Lagos there's a situation that threatens Lagos, he will just declare a state of emergency. You improve security. There's a lot of security situation in Nigeria. Zamfara, where they're stealing all the gold, and all the northern states where you have the bandits killing people every day. They've not declared state of emergency there. They are managing the situation head on with the military. So if there was a situation that created threat in River State, they would have improved first the mobile police and the security, stand down the crisis. But we had NSAS under Buhari. They didn't declare a state of emergency. So this one for me was hasty. The initiation of it may have been in good light, but it was hasty. However, this 6 months gives us the time for Nigerians to now look at the intent of Mr. President in doing this. Will there be justice? How will it go? What will happen next? Nigerians will look at it and that will not decide what will happen. Luckily, both assemblies, joint assemblies, the House of Reps and the Senate have said not later than 6 months. So it could reverse this next week. It could be in a month's time. But I expect now that everybody is sober, including Fubara himself. They will now have a need to reason for the people of River State and sheath their sword and reach a compromise. However, that compromise should not be at the expense of the people of River State or the resources of River State. It must be fair and equitable to all.
But do you think it's really going to be fair at the expense of the people of River State? That's one question. Secondly, I'd like you to touch on this. Okay, answer the first question.
The worst that can happen has happened. That is the worst that can happen. There's no other thing anybody can do, except they probably want to start chasing the governor if he doesn't have immunity again. As far as I'm concerned, he's still the elected governor.
Absolutely.
He still enjoys it. It's just been suspended. Go and rest first. Let us resolve the crisis. So, for me, this is the worst that can happen. So now, because this has happened, I think they should all go and be sober. It is not doing well for the minister, neither for the governor, neither for the people of River State. So they should go and be sober and make the kind of compromise that can give all parties a win-win so River State and Nigeria can be peaceful. For instance, the Ibok people got involved, not because they are interested in the politics of Fubara and Wike. It was because Wike called them out. All this battle has been on in the last 2 years. Ibok people generally didn't get involved. But when Wike started insulting the entire ethnic group, it then called for others to respond. And I said clearly that this can only happen in the Niger Delta. Okay. If, for instance, the minister was bold enough to say the same things he said about Ijaw people to, for instance, Igbo people or Yoruba people or Hausa people, he won't be able to go to those places to go and dance again and many them be. You know, it was very embarrassing the way things went with the minister. So he can't deny that it's not part of it. However, this is the worst that can happen. The House of Assembly is down, the governor is down. He himself that is celebrating, he is not being celebrated. He is seen as a tyrant by the majority of Nigerians. So it doesn't help his political career. The good will that I enjoy, sitting here, I admire Wike a lot for his radicalism in terms of infrastructure development and courage. But from the day he started doing all these kind of funny things, he lost my support. And a lot of people like that, he's becoming unpopular. So for me, the president now needs to step back and get eminent Nigerians who are neutral and biased to go in and do what he needs to do. You can't throw the governor away. He's elected. Except he's impeached, he's still governor. So there must be some compromise that will make Rivers people happy. It's for a while. It may be earlier than the 6 months, and I hope it gets to be earlier than the 6 months.
Thank you, Dr. Chris Ekiyor. Now, back to Dotun in the studio. We've seen the executive arm has done what it did by suspending. Now, we have three arms of government, the legislature, which should act as a check on the executive. What do you make of the swift way of the approval of the state of emergency, especially through a voice note yesterday by both the House of Representatives and the Nigerian Senate? And Sahara Reporters also came out with a publication alleging that foreign exchange, US dollars, exchange hands to, ease the process. What do you make of all of this? And what does he say about the relationship between the executive, the APC-led executive, and the 10th Assembly?
Okay. First, we'd like to say that what makes democracy is actually the Assembly, the National Assembly or the House of Assembly. While we were under military rule, we had the executive, we had the judiciary. But what makes democracy is actually the representation of the people. And the Assembly, both the National Assembly and the Houses of Assembly, they are very, very central to anything that will happen in democracy. And one of the ways that I think we can also facilitate progress and development in our country is for us to have a National Assembly that works with the executive. Again, one of the ways to derail our democracy is to have a National Assembly that is a rubber stamp to whatever the decision of the executive is. So having the ability to draw this line is where legislative wisdom.
How would you describe the 10th Assembly? Is it a rubber stamp? Because what we're seeing these days is ask and it shall be given.
Okay, also when you look at the fact that the majority of people in the National Assembly are from the party of the president, usually the leadership of the National Assembly and all of that, I do not have a problem if an APC person or legislator approves the request of an APC president. But here's the problem. The problem is that where is the voice of opposition?
All silent.
Where is the voice of opposition? And usually the opposition may not even have their way. But we just want to hear them say something.
Maybe they don't have the numbers.
Oh, it's not about the number. It's about saying your conviction and directing your conviction and letting the people in power to see that on this particular matter, you actually differ. The concept of opposition is not to have their way. It is to have their say. But when you build a National Assembly where you do not have the say, you do not hear the say of the opposition, you do not seem to know where they are, then the question should just be directed at the principle of opposition. So now, for example, we have heard the voice vote, and I listened to it very carefully. It's not supposed to be a voice vote, but voice vote has been called for. We didn't have a single nay in the Senate. It was in the House of Reps that we had.
I mean, you need to have a very baritone voice for your name to come out.
It's just what it is. It's an understanding that has been created for this government, but politicians must learn how to direct the essence of cooperation to development rather than derailing democracy through acceptance of everything that comes their way.
All right. There's a major question that's ongoing in this entire, we're going to call it an entire drama that everyone seems to be talking about, and I'd like to get your input and your own side of the story. I'm going to start first with Dr. Ekiyor. The point is this. Now, we do know and we do understand that budget presentation was a major challenge, especially in Rivers State, where the now suspended governor was told to represent the budget to the Martins Amewule, faction, because whether we like it or not, it's been proven that there was indeed a faction in the assembly. And because of not being able to carry on that budget presentation, which he eventually tried to do, but of course was shut out from the assembly, this didn't happen at all. Now, we do have a sole administrator. The president says that the budget would actually be approved and given to him. So, who is the sole administrator going to present the budget to? Is it the National Assembly or the Joint Assembly? And who is going to checkmate how these funds are spent? Remember, you do have the governor who also oversees these things and the State Assembly, but they're no more. They're suspended. So how do you think this would play out now, especially for the people of Rivers State? Or do you think that the president didn't possibly think this through carefully with his team?
All right, so that's the issue with sole administratorship. Way back, we used to have those people they call the Milad or the Solad. Now, what they have done technically is to invoke a doctrine of necessity upon Rivers State, where the National Assembly now has become like the legislative arm of Rivers State. And so they have directed that the Solad or sole administrator would have to take the budget to them and the spending to them for ratification. Once they do that, he's then empowered to spend. Now, the only difference here is that if people have elected a governor who should spend upon whom they have now, given power to expend on their behalf. In this case, the president has appointed somebody to expend on the behalf of the citizens. So it thwarts the intent of democracy. Democracy is supposed to be power derived from the people, for the good of the people. But when you start appointing people, then it becomes an appendage of Abuja. It's like another ministry, like FCT. So Rivers State will be operated now in these 6 months, the way FCT is being operated, to manage the tension. And that's what I'm saying. What tension are they managing? So for me, it's something that is hasty. And we have to watch. Luckily, in all of this, the Solar will also be accountable to the monies he will spend in these 6 months. So when investigations of money issues come, he will also be called to book. Unfortunately, in a conflict like this, it's a power struggle. It wasn't intended for the good of Rivers people. It was just about asserting who is the boss between the FCT minister, the Speaker of the House, who's answerable to the FCT minister, and of course the governor, who should ordinarily be answerable to him because he was his godfather, but now have grown to become a man and wants to have his own independence. So that's the conflict of independence, and they are all suffering for it. Unfortunately, the sole admin would be, or the administrator would have to go to Abuja regularly with Rivers State's fund to go and seek approval for things beyond his approval limit. And that's where it comes in. So, well, I hope that the parties will quickly resolve and put an end to that kind of experience. In my growing up, where I see sole administrators were under military rule, and we're in a democracy that is thriving. And I'm very concerned that we cannot do things that would truncate our democracy.
All right, Dr. Ojon, do you have any comments on that?
Okay, so as it is now, in the eye of democratic tradition, there's no government in Rivers. And as pronounced by the Supreme Court, one of the things that the Supreme Court said that nobody has talked about is the fact that in the concluding part of the judgment, the Supreme Court said that because Sim, the governor of Rivers State, shut down the House of Assembly, that there's no government in Rivers. If you remember that judgment. And that's the exact same thing the president has done by shutting down both the House of Assembly and the executive arm. So if one arm of government is missing in a democracy, then there cannot be said to be a government in that situation. So we have repeated, you see, Sim Fubara made a mistake of having issues with the House of Assembly, of shutting down the House of Assembly, according to the Supreme Court ruling. We have repeated that same mistake now. So it is logical for anyone to say, as we speak now, because of the absence of the House of Assembly, that there's no government in Rivers. And the import of that is the fact that we have set a very bad precedent and tradition that anybody can run to. You know, in Nigeria, whenever we want to support any action, we look back to go look for a similar action.
Either in our client or in the other client.
And we continue to use that to perpetrate whatever it is that is our political ideology or belief. For me, there will have been a better situation, there will have been a better management situation. And I say it again, that a genuine call from Mr. President will have restored peace to Rivers State. And now that we are at where we are, we should know. And one of the things I also want to commend the National Assembly for, in all fairness, is that they introduced some new clauses to the emergency declaration. Because in some circles that I belong to, people have begun to suggest that maybe the president wants to use the back door. After 6 months, he will extend it again. After that one, he will extend. And by the time you extend it twice, it will mean that we are almost in 2027. But with the inclusions of the National Assembly, I think they should be commended, because this thing must not go past 6 months. If our intention is to create peace for dividend of democracy to be enjoyed by the people.
Gladiators are still fighting after this?
No, of course, that was why I was saying maybe my elder brother Ekiyor didn't get what I was saying the other time. That was why I was saying that we could have, since we have identified the major players, we could have put them on recess so that they have something they are looking forward to. The Minister of FCT is doing well in Abuja. If he goes on recess, on suspension, until after all of these things are resolved, he will have something he's looking forward to.
Is it possible to suspend the FCT minister?
It is possible to suspend anybody.
Let me bring Chris into this, back into the...
Is it not easier to suspend a minister than suspending a governor?
Absolutely, it's easier because the governor was indeed elected.
Ekiyor, the Senate called for a committee. It was part of their recommendations, a committee of eminent Nigerians to mediate. How effective do you think such committee will be in resolving this crisis? Remember, elders have reached out to both warring parties in the past, and it didn't solve anything. And Nigerians are saying, look, we have a way of committing everything. It's almost a committocracy. You're going to spend money on certain allowance for this eminent elders. Which other alternatives could be used to resolve this crisis in 6 months?
Okay, so in a garden of lions, if you need to make peace, you don't want to send goats into that farm, eh? So the power player here is the president, the governor, the minister, the House of Assembly. So I want to think that first from Rivers State, the previous governors and speakers of Rivers State can be put in a room with this warring faction and Mr. President and some representatives from the National Assembly to look at this issue critically under a presidential supervision, and then look at a middle course where nobody feels defeated. That's how I look at it. Because head or tail, there must be a reconciliation. There is no bad peace. There is no bad peace. There's no good war. There is no bad peace, there's no good war. So no matter how bad this peace is, I think it is better for Governor Fubara to be governor and manage River State with River State people with their mandate than for anything else to happen. The restraint that a lot of Rivers people have taken is commendable, because I don't know what could have happened differently if maybe youth took to the street and there's chaos in River State. The state of emergency would have been another emergency in itself. So I want to commend the conduct of the people of River State, including my Ijaw brothers nationwide, for their patience and listening to wise counsel for most of us who have appealed to them not to do anything differently. And then I want to think that Mr. President retrospectively would also know that he was a bit hasty on this matter. But like I said, it's like when the Supreme Court gives a judgment, it's usually very difficult to reverse itself, except in very rare cases. So he's going to walk through this loop. At best, he's going to shorten the time with which this will happen. And then win the confidence of Nigeria that his intention was ab initio germane. The problem, like you said, is clear. When the Supreme Court says without the House of Assembly, there is no government, and now without the Executive and the House of Assembly, there is still no government. But that's why I said there is a doctrine of necessity to take care of that, because there is no vacuum in government. But that should not be done at the expense of the mandate of the people. So yes, these eminent Nigerians, I think they should focus on people from River State who are very familiar with the turf. Peter Odili is still very much there. Amechi is still very much there. Even Omeya is still very much there. Himself, Wiki is there. Then they pick all the speakers. Luckily, Amechi was also speaker for 8 years under Odili. They pick all the speakers before this time. Chibundo was deputy speaker of the House of Reps. So River State, we've had previous senior citizens who are senators. They may have taken their sides, but before the president, let everybody put the cards bare, and then let a neutral party from the National Assembly mediate and find what is the middle course. The first mediation that was in the social media, I wasn't there. It was like a riot out being read to the governor. Go and do this, go and do this. And the governor has said in public spaces, they told him to accept all the commissioners who voluntarily resigned. He accepted. They told him to present the budget. He was willing to present, but the people were not there. And the AG is blaming the governor for breaking the House of Assembly. Now, let me say that that's a little bit petty in the eyes of the common people. The governor, that place was bombed. If the engineering department or the works ministry says that the building is compromised, let's take it down and build another one. Then they're taking it down. What the House of Assembly should be doing is to demand for a temporary place until their building is built. Infrastructures are not built overnight. He's building other things. He should build that. If he's using it for political tool, then wherever the speaker is seated with the mates, become the House of Assembly, and they can still take action. But it was a case of the governor trying to deal with the House of Assembly members, the House of Assembly members trying to victimize the governor and impeach him, and it's a power struggle. And then you have the umpire who should have settled both parties, who is minister himself, now taking side already. Now, and then he didn't just take side like a politician that he should be, because this man was local government chairman, was governor for 8 years, was chief of staff to Amici, and was minister before now. So he has the political credential to be able to manage political situation in River State. Okay. However, I do not know why he is basking in the referral of his excitement as if he has never occupied political office before. He's dancing everywhere, he's talking everywhere. He's not the only minister in the Federal Republic, for God's sake. So he should not make himself unpopular by the conduct that he is carrying about, not only just for River State, but around the Federation itself. All right. He's not also the first minister of the FCT, so he should be cautioned to downtone his anger. He's expressing as if it's a frustration. He shouldn't be. He has ruled 8 years. He should be able to manage this thing in the manner that orderly manage those after him, and all of those kind of things. He's
all right,
struggled with Amici. He shouldn't bring that one back to River State.
Dr. Ekiyor, I want to say thank you so much. Our time for this conversation is up. Thank you for your time and thanks for joining us. And also thank you for the angles that you've actually x-rayed this conversation on. We appreciate you. And also, thank you, Mr. Dr. Ojon, for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Always good having you speak on these very critical issues.